I woke up on Thanksgiving morning to an empty house. No note, no call, no warning. 5 days later, I had 18 missed calls. I'm glad you're here. Truly. Because this is not a story I ever planned to tell out loud. It's one I kept folded neatly inside me, like a document you don't throw away because you know you'll need it someday. And when I finally opened it, everything I thought I knew about family rearranged itself. That morning, Thursday, November 24th, I woke up at 6:11 a.m. I know the time because I checked my phone, expecting the usual text from my daughter-in-law about what time they'd arrive. Instead, there was nothing. No messages overnight. No missed calls. The house was quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like a hotel room after checkout. I walked downstairs barefoot. The air was cold. Too cold. The thermostat was set to 62, even though I always kept it at 70 on holidays. The coat rack by the door was empty. All 4 hooks. My son's navy jacket, his wife's beige trench, the kids' bright backpacks, gone. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for a sound that never came. That wasn't the worst part. The refrigerator was almost empty. Not in a careless way, deliberately. The orange juice was gone. The almond milk carton I'd bought 2 days earlier was gone. The turkey I'd ordered weeks in advance, already thawing on the bottom shelf, was gone too. The house hadn't been abandoned. It had been cleared. I remember thinking, very calmly, they planned this. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. No group chat updates. No shared calendar notification. No happy Thanksgiving, Mom. Just silence. At 6:38 a.m., I opened my email. That's when I saw it. A receipt from Delta Airlines. 4 tickets. Los Angeles to Honolulu. Departure, Wednesday night, 11:58 p.m. I didn't understand it then. I sat at the kitchen table with that email open, my coffee untouched. The numbers didn't register at first. $6,842.17 charged to an account I recognized immediately, because it used to be mine. Luxury Select, the ticket class read. Priority boarding. Extra legroom. Resort shuttle included. I remember whispering out loud, Hawaii. That word didn't belong in my kitchen. Not that morning. Not with the pumpkin pie cooling on the counter and the place settings already laid out. 4 plates. 4 cloth napkins. I'd pressed them myself the night before while watching the local news. I told myself there had to be an explanation. A surprise. A mistake. Something reasonable. Families don't disappear overnight. Sons don't take grandchildren across the ocean without a word. Family doesn't do this. I called my son. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't want to sound confused. I didn't want to sound old. At 7:02 a.m., I texted his wife. Good morning. Are you all okay? The message showed as delivered. It was never read. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not panic. Not anger. Just a quiet, heavy realization that this wasn't an accident. This was a decision. One made without me. I didn't cry. People always expect that part. I didn't cry. I washed the mug I never used. I folded the napkins back into the drawer. I sat down with a yellow legal pad and wrote one line across the top. What I know. Because I knew enough to understand that if they could leave like this, without a word, then whatever came next would not be small. And there was one sentence in that airline receipt. One line buried under baggage fees and confirmation codes. A sentence I didn't pay attention to until much later. When I finally did, it changed everything. That's where this really begins. Before I begin, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. And if stories like this stay with you, please like and subscribe. It really helps me keep sharing the truths I've carried for years. Before that Thanksgiving, my life was quiet in a way I'd worked hard to earn. Predictable. Stable. I was 64 years old, living in the same 2-story house in Pasadena I'd bought with my late husband 22 years earlier. 3 bedrooms, a small backyard, 1 lemon tree that never quite behaved but produced fruit anyway. After my husband passed, I didn't rush to change anything. I kept the house. I kept my routines. Tuesdays were groceries. Thursdays were laundry. Sundays were phone calls with my son, Aaron, always around 4 p.m., like clockwork. He used to joke that I was more reliable than his calendar app. When Aaron married Melissa, I welcomed her carefully, the way you do when you know your place is shifting but you don't want to admit it. She was organized, efficient. She color-coded everything. Their life ran on shared Google calendars and reminders. If something wasn't written down, it didn't exist. I admired that about her. Or at least I told myself I did. When the kids came along, Evan Feist, then Lily, I adjusted again. Babysitting on Fridays. Emergency pickups when Melissa's meetings ran late. School drop-offs when Aaron traveled. I didn't mind. I never kept score. I told myself this was what family did. We never asked you to help. That was something Melissa said once, casually, when I offered to keep the kids overnight so they could attend a work retreat. I remember nodding and smiling, pretending I hadn't heard it the way it landed. Money was always the quiet undercurrent. Aaron worked in tech sales. Melissa was in project management. Their income fluctuated. Bonuses came and went. I had a pension from my years as a compliance officer and a modest investment account my husband and I had built slowly, deliberately. I was careful, conservative. I paid off my mortgage early. I didn't carry credit card debt. At least, I didn't think I did. Holidays were my one indulgence. I planned them weeks in advance. Thanksgiving was always at my house. That year, Melissa had even sent me a spreadsheet. Who was bringing what? Arrival times, dietary notes. Evan didn't like onions. Lily couldn't have too much sugar. Aaron preferred dark meat. It all looked normal on paper. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, Aaron called me like usual. 4:03 p.m. I remember because I glanced at the oven clock. Everything set for Thursday, he asked. Yes, I said. Turkeys ordered. 12 pounds. There was a pause. A small one. Not long enough to call out. Long enough to notice. That's great, he said. We'll see you then. He didn't ask if I needed anything. He didn't mention travel. Melissa didn't get on the phone, which he usually did to confirm details. I told myself they were busy. Kids do that. Life moves fast. I didn't understand it then. On Monday, Melissa sent a message in the family group chat. Reminder, kids dismissed early Wednesday. No other context. No follow-up. Tuesday night, I transferred $1,200 from my savings to my checking account. Routine. I always did that before holidays to cover groceries and incidental expenses. The bank app sent its usual confirmation email. I didn't notice anything unusual. Not yet. Looking back, the signs were there. Subtle. Small. The kind you dismiss because acknowledging them would mean admitting something you're not ready to face. Everything's fine, I told myself. Families don't do this. That night, I laid out the tablecloth. Ironed the napkins. I even set out the kids' name cards, handwritten in blue ink. Evan liked seeing his name. Lily always corrected me if I dotted the I too big. When I went to bed, I set my alarm for 6 a.m. Thanksgiving morning. I wanted to start early. I wanted everything to be perfect. I didn't know it yet, but that Sunday phone call, the pause, the flat goodbye, was the first real crack. I just didn't understand it then. The first moment something felt truly wrong wasn't the empty house. It was what came before it. Wednesday afternoon, Thanksgiving Eve, I went to the grocery store one last time. I needed fresh herbs and whipped cream. Nothing urgent. Just the kind of small errand that makes a holiday feel real. My phone buzzed while I was in the checkout line. It was a notification from my bank. Did you attempt a purchase for $3,421.08? I stayed at the screen longer than necessary. I hadn't bought anything close to that amount. I tapped no and the alert disappeared. A second later, another message came through. Transaction approved. I assumed it was a system error. Banks send those sometimes. I made a mental note to check my account later and finished paying for my groceries. The cashier wished me a happy Thanksgiving. I smiled back. I meant it. When I got home, I put the bags down and opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account the way I always did, slowly, carefully, checking each digit. The balance refreshed. $4,913.27. That number was wrong. 2 days earlier, after my routine transfer, the balance had been just over $11,000. I knew that because I'd checked it twice. I scrolled down. There it was, a pending charge from an unfamiliar merchant. Pacific Horizon Resorts, $3,421.08. Below it, another charge. Island Lux Rentals, $1,987.82. I didn't understand it then. I clicked into the details. Both charges were tied to a credit card I rarely used. A card I'd taken out years earlier for emergencies and family travel. A card Aaron had access to because I'd added him as an authorized user when his first child was born, just in case. It's just paperwork. That was what the bank representative had said back then. He'd assured me it was harmless, convenient, reversible. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I expected panic. What I felt instead was something colder, focused. I opened my email and searched for transaction alerts. There were more. Rental car deposit, resort activities package, airline seat upgrades, all charged between 11:42 p.m. and 12:07 a.m. the night before. That timing mattered. It told me this wasn't accidental. It wasn't rushed. Someone had sat down and finalized plans while I slept. I checked the family calendar. Still nothing. No travel entries. No blocked out days. It was as if their absence had been intentionally erased. At 5:16 p.m., I called Aaron again. Straight to voicemail. I left a message this time. My voice was steady. Hi, sweetheart. I noticed some unusual charges on my account. Please call me when you get this. I didn't accuse. I didn't assume. I gave him room to explain. He didn't call back. At 6:02 p.m., Melissa texted the group chat, boarding soon. Talk later. No destination. No explanation. Just that. My chest tightened then. Not with fear, with recognition. That message wasn't for me. It was a formality. Something sent to maintain the appearance of inclusion. You should be grateful. That phrase surfaced in my mind, uninvited. Melissa had said it once, years earlier, when I'd questioned a purchase she'd made on the same card. I'd brushed it off at the time. I told myself I was overthinking. Now, sitting alone in my kitchen, I replayed that moment differently. At 7:40 p.m., I checked my email again. That was when I noticed something I'd missed earlier. A confirmation attached to one of the resort charges. A PDF. I opened it. For guests. Oceanfront Suite. Duration, November 24th to December 1st. 1 week. Under billing contact, my name was listed. My email. My phone number. Under special notes, one line stood out. Guest prefers no contact during stay. I stayed at that sentence until the words blurred. That wasn't a default setting. Someone had typed that in. I didn't understand it then. Not fully. But I understood enough to know this wasn't about a vacation. This was about distance. Control. About making a choice and ensuring I couldn't interrupt it. That night, I slept poorly. Not because of worry, but because something inside me had shifted. A question had formed that wouldn't let go. If they were willing to do this so cleanly, so quietly, what else had they already decided without me? I didn't understand it then, but I was about to. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces. Clean, factual pieces. The kind that don't shout, don't dramatize themselves, just sit there, undeniable. Friday morning, the day after Thanksgiving, I woke up early again. 5:58 a.m. I know because I wrote it down. I'd started documenting things by then. Dates, times, amounts. Not out of anger, but clarity. I needed to understand what had already happened before I decided what to do next. I made coffee and opened my laptop. I didn't check my phone first. That felt important. I wanted facts, not explanations. I logged into my credit card account, the one tied to the resort charges. The transaction list had updated overnight. What had been pending was now posted. Finalized. Total, $12,437.96. That number landed harder than I expected. Not because I couldn't technically afford it, but because of how it was spent. Flights, resort, rental car, activities, every dollar allocated toward a week that deliberately excluded me. I clicked into the card settings. Authorized users. There it was. Aaron's name. Active. No spending limit. I scrolled further. Mailing address on file had been changed 3 weeks earlier. Email for statements had been updated. Paperless delivery enabled. None of that had been done by me. I felt something loosen in my chest then. Not relief. Acceptance. This wasn't impulsive. It had been staged. Slowly. Methodically. Someone had been preparing for this. I downloaded every statement from the last 6 months. All of them. I lined them up side by side. Patterns emerged quickly when you looked without excuses. Flights I hadn't taken. Subscriptions I didn't recognize. Charges that appeared just after midnight, clustered close together. Island Lux rentals showed up twice before. Smaller amounts. Test charges. I'd missed them because they were buried among groceries and utilities. That wasn't the worst part. I opened my email again and searched for the word bank. That's when I found the notification I hadn't noticed earlier in the week. Your account access has been updated. Timestamp, November 2nd. Location, Orange County, California. I live in Pasadena. Attached was a security log. Device ID. IP address. The login didn't match any of mine. But it matched one I recognized immediately, because Aaron had borrowed my iPad a month earlier to help Evan with a school project. I hadn't logged out of anything. I never thought I needed to. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I needed to stay exact. At 9:14 a.m., I called the bank's fraud department. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse my son by name. I asked questions. Can you confirm when the access changes were made? Yes. And by which device? Yes. And whether consent was recorded? No. That last word mattered. They froze the card. Temporarily. The representative explained the process. Investigation. Review. Potential reversal. I thanked her. Hung up. Took notes. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do yet. I checked my investment account. It took longer to load. That made my stomach tighten. When the dashboard finally appeared, the balance was lower than I expected. Not dramatically, but enough to notice. 2 withdrawals, $2,000 each, marked as family support. The notes field had been filled in. I didn't write those words. I sat very still then. The house was quiet. The lemon tree outside the window moved slightly in the breeze. Everything looked normal. That contrast felt almost cruel. I opened my phone. Still no calls. No messages. Not from Aaron. Not from Melissa. Nothing. I didn't understand it then, not emotionally. But intellectually, the picture was clear. This wasn't about forgetting to invite me. This wasn't about a spontaneous trip. This was about entitlement. I remembered something Melissa had said once during a conversation about finances I hadn't wanted to have. You're stable. We're just starting out. At the time, I'd nodded. I'd believed generosity was enough. That love didn't require documentation. Now, sitting alone with bank statements spread across my table, I understood the cost of that belief. At 11:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. One message. From Aaron. We'll talk when we get back. No apology. No explanation. Just a delay. That was the lowest point. Not the money. Not the exclusion. That sentence. It told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. I didn't cry. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new page in my notebook and wrote a different heading. What I will do next. Because whatever came after this, whatever confrontation, whatever fallout, it would not be reactive. It would be deliberate. And they had no idea what I was about to understand. The shift from pain to control didn't feel dramatic. It felt procedural. By Saturday morning, I had stopped asking why. That question belonged to a version of me that still hoped this was a misunderstanding. What I needed now was to understand how, and what options were still mine. I made a list. Not an emotional one. a practical one. Accounts, access points, legal authority, timelines. I started with passwords. Every financial account, every email tied to banking or billing. I didn't rush. I generated new passwords, wrote them down by hand, and stored them where only I could reach them. Two-factor authentication on everything. Phone number updated. Backup email changed. At 9:22 a.m., I removed Aaron as an authorized user on the credit card. The app confirmed it instantly. No drama. No warning sent to him. That felt important. Next, I called my financial advisor. I hadn't spoken to him in months. He answered on the second ring. I need a review, I said. Full access audit. He didn't ask questions. He scheduled a video call for Monday morning. I spent the rest of Saturday organizing documents, statements, emails, screenshots. I printed everything. I labeled folders. Dates in the top right corner. Amounts circled in red. Numbers create gravity. I understood that now. Sunday afternoon, I went through my will. I hadn't touched it since my husband died. It still reflected a version of my family that no longer existed. Primary beneficiary, Aaron. Secondary, the grandchildren. I didn't change anything yet. I just read it. Slowly, carefully. You should be grateful. That phrase came back again. This time, it didn't sting. It clarified. Gratitude had been expected of me. Silence, too. What no one had counted on was my willingness to step back and observe. By Monday morning, my emotions had cooled into something steadier. Not numbness, precision. The call with my advisor lasted 4 to 7 minutes. He confirmed what I already knew. Unauthorized access, improper withdrawals, potential recovery, but only if action was taken. What do you want to do? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I thought about Thanksgiving morning. The empty hooks on the coat rack. The turkey gone from the fridge. The deliberate neatness of it all. I want documentation, I said. And options. He sent me a secure folder by email. I uploaded everything. That afternoon, I consulted an attorney. Not a dramatic one. A calm, older woman who listened more than she spoke. I laid out the facts. I showed her the timeline. She nodded once. This isn't about revenge, she said. It's about boundaries. That word settled into me. We discussed steps, not confrontations. Safeguards. She explained what could be reversed. What couldn't. What needed to be frozen immediately. One action, she said, would be irreversible. I told her I understood. By Tuesday, I had made my decision. I didn't call Aaron. I didn't text Melissa. I didn't announce anything. Control doesn't require an audience. At 3:18 p.m., I authorized the bank to proceed with a formal fraud claim. I submitted the documentation. I signed digitally. At 4:02 p.m., I updated my estate plan. Not to punish, to reflect reality. I remember closing my laptop and sitting quietly for a long time. The house felt different then. Not empty, just mine again. That night, I slept through without waking once. I knew what would happen next. There would be anger, confusion, justifications, accusations of overreaction. I was ready for all of it, because the next step, the one they wouldn't see coming, had already been set in motion. And once it happened, nothing could be undone. The first call came on Wednesday. I recognized the number immediately. Honolulu area code. I let it ring. The second call came 12 minutes later. Then a third. By the fourth call, my phone vibrated on the table like something alive. I waited until it stopped before I picked it up. Aaron's voice was tight. Controlled. Too controlled. Mom, we need to talk. I didn't answer right away. The card isn't working, he said, and the bank flagged the account. I know, I said. Silence. Then Melissa's voice in the background. Not on the line. Coaching. You shouldn't have done this, he said finally. Short sentences. Clear tone. I kept my voice level. You used my account without permission. It was temporary, he said. We were going to explain. That wasn't the worst part, I said. You changed my access. He inhaled sharply. He hadn't expected that. Melissa took the phone. "We didn't think you'd notice so quickly," she said. There it was. Not denial. Not apology. Just calculation. "You're overreacting," she added. "We needed a break." I didn't raise my voice. "You listed me as the billing contact and requested no contact," I said. "That isn't a break." Silence again. Heavy this time. "We never asked you to help," she said. "You always offer." That sentence had been waiting for years. I let it sit between us. At 3:18 p.m. on Tuesday, I said, "I filed a fraud claim." Aaron swore under his breath. "You can't do that," Melissa said. "That's serious." "It is," I agreed. "What are you trying to do?" Aaron asked. I didn't answer the question he wanted. I answered the one underneath. "I'm documenting the truth." The call ended abruptly. No goodbye. 2 hours later, my attorney called. The bank had initiated reversals. The resort had been notified. The rental company flagged the agreement. The airline confirmed the tickets were under review. One action had already taken effect. The room service charge had been declined. At 7:46 p.m., Melissa texted me, "You're embarrassing us." I read it once. Then I took a screenshot and added it to the folder. At 8:13 p.m., Aaron sent an email. Long defensive. Explaining stress, work pressure, kids, entitlement wrapped in exhaustion. I didn't respond. At 9:02 p.m., the final message came. "We're stranded." That word was chosen carefully, designed to trigger guilt. I stayed at it, thought about the numbers, the documents, the deliberate choices that had led here. I didn't understand it then. Now I did. I replied once. "You have resources. Use them. No more. No less." The next morning, my advisor confirmed the provisional credit had been applied. My balance restored. The investment withdrawals revised pending investigation. Irreversible action completed. Later that day, my attorney sent me a revised estate summary. Clean. Updated. Accurate. I printed it. Signed it. Placed it in the folder with everything else. There was no shouting. No dramatic confrontation. Just a quiet shift in power. They flew home 2 days later. Economy. Middle seats. I know because the airline confirmation forwarded itself to my email automatically. Old habits die hard. I didn't forward it. I didn't comment. I waited. Because the consequences weren't over yet. They were just beginning to understand them. They didn't come to see me when they got back. That was the first consequence. Not imposed by me, chosen by them. Aaron texted once they landed. "We're home." Nothing else. No apology. No request to talk. Just a statement, like a box checked off a list. Melissa didn't reach out at all. For a while, the silence felt familiar. I'd lived in it before, just without realizing what it meant. This time, I didn't fill it. I let it sit. A week passed, then another. The bank investigation continued quietly. I was updated by email. Each message was brief, factual. Unauthorized access confirmed. Charges reversed. Account protections permanently adjusted. The language mattered. Unauthorized. Not misunderstood. Not family support. Unauthorized. My attorney advised me to keep distance while things settled. I followed that advice. I didn't initiate contact. I didn't chase explanations. I didn't offer reassurance. I spent those weeks doing small, ordinary things. Walking in the mornings. Cleaning out closets. Donating clothes I no longer wore. Life doesn't pause for emotional processing the way people imagine it does. It keeps moving. You move with it or you don't. 2 weeks after they returned, Aaron finally came over. Alone. He stood on the porch longer than necessary before knocking. When I opened the door, he looked older. Tired. Not devastated, just unsettled. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd opened the airline receipt weeks earlier. I didn't offer coffee. He didn't ask. "I didn't think it would go this far," he said. "That's the problem," I replied. "You didn't think." He rubbed his hands together, avoided my eyes. "Melissa thought." I held up my hand. No, I said. You thought. That landed. I could see it in his posture. Shoulders slumping slightly. A shift from defense to something closer to recognition. We were stressed, he said. We needed time away. And you always said. I said I was here, I interrupted. Not that you could take without asking. He nodded. Slowly. I didn't mean to hurt you. I believed that. And it didn't change anything. We talked for 40 minutes. No yelling. No crying. Just facts. Boundaries. What had changed? I told him the accounts were closed to shared access. That financial help would now be requested, not assumed. That my will had been updated to reflect current relationships, not past expectations. What does that mean? He asked. It means what it says, I replied. He didn't argue. When he left, he hugged me awkwardly. Briefly. It felt like the end of something, not the beginning. Melissa still hasn't come by. The kids came over once, supervised. Short visit. They were confused. I didn't explain. Children don't need adult justifications. They need consistency. I gave them that. Some things were lost in all this. The version of family I thought I had. The assumption of mutual respect. The ease. But other things shifted into place. My finances are clear now. My boundaries are visible. My time is mine again. I still host Thanksgiving. This year, it was smaller. Friends, neighbors, people who asked before taking, who said thank you and meant it. The house felt full in a different way. That silence, the one that used to feel like absence, now feels like peace. And while there are things I miss, there are things I don't. I don't miss second-guessing myself. I don't miss explaining generosity. I don't miss being assumed. What I gained wasn't revenge or vindication. It was clarity, and that has stayed. Time has a way of softening the noise without erasing the facts. Months have passed since that Thanksgiving. The details haven't blurred. If anything, they've sharpened. I remember the dates, the amounts, the exact wording of the messages, not because I replay them constantly, but because I don't have to anymore. They are settled, filed away, understood. My relationship with Aaron exists now in a narrower space. It's polite, measured. They are updates about the children, photos on birthdays, short calls on holidays, no shared finances, no assumptions, no blurred lines. That boundary used to scare me. I thought distance meant failure. Now I understand it can also mean respect. Melissa and I don't speak. That's not a punishment. It's a fact. She hasn't reached out, and I haven't invited her in. Some relationships end not with arguments, but with clarity. This was one of them. The grandchildren are growing. They know me as someone steady, someone who shows up when promised and leaves when it's time. I don't fill their heads with stories. I don't explain adult choices. I let them be children. I still live in the same house. The lemon tree still misbehaves. The kitchen table still holds paper wipes sometimes, but it also holds books, letters, quiet mornings. I've learned something important through all of this, something I wish I'd understood earlier. Love doesn't require you to disappear. Generosity doesn't mean surrender. Family doesn't get a free pass to cross lines you would never allow anyone else to cross. I used to believe keeping the peace meant staying silent, absorbing discomfort, letting things slide because confrontation felt worse. I was wrong. Peace comes from alignment, from knowing what you will and will not accept and acting accordingly, without cruelty and without apology. When I look back at that Thanksgiving morning now, I don't feel humiliation. I feel information. It showed me the truth in a way words never could. And the truth, once seen, can't be unseen. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. Respect grows where boundaries are honored, not where silence is mistaken for love.